Thank you for coming, and clearly appreciate your ability to shift your schedule and also to come out on the call for this very worthwhile event. And I just want to explain that this is the first in a series of income inequality events the college has for this year. The Diversity Council, which is chaired by Judy Myers, and Judy's in the second row here, and a lot of help from the social science department, and various faculty from the social science department have been collaborating on a series of programs this year about income inequality. And that is to help students understand some of the issues that relate to income inequality, and also with the goal not only of changing their thoughts and learning, but also to change behaviors, hoping people will consider volunteering out in the community to help with this very important topic of income inequality. And literacy, and you'll hear from the presenters today, the focus on literacy is because we know that those individuals who cannot read, who cannot write, are at a particular danger for income inequality, for falling into the lower ranks of income earnings, and that can have lifelong consequences for the individual as well as the individual's children. So what we have put together is a panel where we're going to take a lifelong perspective on literacy. And so to get us started, we'll have Ms. Kate Zielinski, who is a faculty member in the Early Childhood Education Program. She's going to talk about literacy and brain development. We'll have Ms. Lynn Paps, who is the coordinator of the Early Childhood Education Program, who will speak about success in school regarding literacy. And then finally, we'll end with Kim Gavlik, who is the director of the ALTO program, which works with adult literacy. I just want to remind you that there are a variety of handouts here to make sure that you take one. One particular handout is about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. This is for young children from birth to 4 years old, that if you are the parent or you know someone who's a parent of young children, to enroll in this free program where your child will receive a free book every month of their life until they're 5 years old. So it comes in the mail, you register once. It's a wonderful opportunity to get books into the hands of children. And so if you know anyone that can register for this program, certainly encourage them to do so. Take the handouts. There is a website link for registration. It is through the Wyoming Valley United Way. So I strongly encourage you to identify individuals that could benefit from that wonderful program. And so, with that being said, I'm going to hand it over. Oh, one other plug, the income inequality. We do have some questions about this event, and if you can fill this form out, it's greatly appreciated. It illustrates to the college and the community what types of events we're providing and the quality of those events, and you can get them to your instructors, who will get them to me, or just get them to me personally. By the way, I'm Janice Wilson-Seeley. I'm the chair of the Social Science and History Department. So with that, we'll hand it over to Ms. Zielinski.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you again for coming. Like Dr. Seeley had said, I'm Kate Zielinski. I teach in the Early Childhood Education Department. I primarily work with students, many of you who are my students, or former students, who want to be kindergarten teachers, preschool teachers, all the way up to fourth grade as well. So I'll talk a little bit today about literacy and brain development. I have it set up kind of as like a little question and answer. So I'll pose a question, you'll think about it, and we'll have a little discussion. I think there'll be 3 or 4 of them throughout the slideshow. So we'll see what we know. First, we'll start with the brain, right? Which is a pretty cool organ if you think about it. This is a website. I'm not going to link out to it now, just since we're a condensed schedule anyway. But maybe some of you are familiar with the parts of the brain. We know that there's 2 hemispheres. We know that there's different parts of the brain that are, responsible for different functions, especially language, memory, visual recognition, auditory processing, all of those very important skills that will influence reading. Just some facts before we get into this a little bit. I read something recently in the newspaper, and it said that there's 2,000 days from when a child is born until they enter kindergarten. And I like to use statistics that kind of help it make sense. So if you have a little baby who's born, there's roughly 2,000 sleeps, as we say in my house. I have 2 young children. How many sleeps until we do something? You have 2,000 sleeps until you start kindergarten. And by the time they start kindergarten, do you know about what percentage of the brain is developed? Give it a shot. By the time a child is 5, higher, 60, higher than that. 90? Who said 90? Oh, I wish I had a treat. 90, yeah, 90%. So in 2,000 sleeps, 90% of your brain is developed. Now, the brain isn't fully developed until scientists are postulating it's about mid-20s now. So some of you, your brain isn't all the way there yet, but the bulk of the work has been done in those first 2,000 sleeps. And what's also another interesting statistic is that, about synapses, right, in the brain, how when they fire, and that's how we make new connections, and that's how, kind of like you use it or lose it, the more synapses you fire in the same pattern, the stronger that connection is. So the more you're read to, the more you're sung to, the more you're spoken to, the better, there's a better chance that you're going to acquire those skills as a reader. Well, when these kids are that age, from birth to 5, 700 synapses are connected in the brain per second. That's incredible. When I would learn about the brain in school, I would think about synapses. Remember, like for the 4th of July, those little poppers you throw on the ground? 700 of those per second. If you think about the young child's brain, they might have a motor like a NASCAR, right? That's how I imagine the young child's brain. And you get that analogy now. If there's 700 synapses per second, that makes sense. We're riding lawnmowers, friends. That's the way our brain works. Not to put us down, but we're not making 700 new connections. Realistically, we couldn't. Could you imagine the state that we were going, walking around making 700 connections a second? But the point being, young children are born ready to learn. They're ready. So you have to be prepared to meet their needs. And not everyone needs to be an expert in literacy or psychology or to do this. This is stuff that comes intuitively to many people. And unfortunately, it does not come intuitively to other people as well. So it's a skill that can be learned, so it's a good thing. Some of us kind of get it. It's a natural disposition that we take with our children, but it certainly can be learned. So let's talk a little bit about it. What do we know? We do know that babies learn through relationships. I teach a class called Infants and Toddlers, and many of you were in that class. We do know that babies learn through relationships. So if you look at the picture there, that's your curriculum for this age. We're not talking about flashcards. We're not talking about fancy materials. We're not talking about, big expensive toys or gadgets. It's that relationship. It's I have a need as a baby. I have a need. Is there someone who will meet it? Whether that need is I have a dirty diaper, I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm bored. Whatever that need is, someone in my environment is going to meet that need. When that need is met, it does a lot of things for the baby, but one of the things that it does do is that it frees up that child to be able to put their brain not to worry about this need or not to focus on this need that's been met. But now they can look at learning. They can engage. If that child is hungry, tired, cranky, you're not going to have a pleasant conversation with that child until you meet those needs. So we meet the needs. We have a relationship. The baby learns to trust. The baby will grow. And of course, their sensory experiences. Again, that encourages healthy brain development. So we offer babies, of course, safe things to touch, safe things to taste and smell, different sights to see, the different sounds. And then I have a term up there, it's called parent-ease. Does anybody want to take a shot at what that means? Parent-ease, Melissa.
The way you interact with them, the way you speak to them.
It's the tone of voice. It used to be called mother-ease, and then the dad got mad. So I don't blame them, right? Talk to my husband. So it's parent-ease. And if you saw a baby, you think about the way that woman is speaking to that baby. She's not saying, well, hello, dear, it's very cold out today. We're going to put your jacket on. Look at you, little baby. Aren't you so cute? Come on, let's get a little wrap up and we'll do this. That's the parent-ease. And there's research that, and again, that comes instinctively. Next time you talk to a child, listen to the octave of your voice. It rises. And I always tell my class what all of the toys make noises and sing songs and everything, and they're always usually a female voice or a higher pitched male voice. And you press the button and you get this little melody. It's never a big man's voice that talks like this, because babies don't tune into that. That's not something that they're inclined to listen to. So if you address that child in parentese, which becomes natural to our species, if you address that child in parentese, you're more likely to pick up on what you're saying. Just real quick, I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but I have to put a plug for this website, 023.org, and you can see that it has to be the word, ZEROTOTHRE.org. This is a wonderful resource. Maybe just, if you're good, if there's time at the end, I'll show you. I don't want to take up other people's time. But, that's a really cool website for this age group, and it's not just literacy, it's everything child development related. Very handy. So 0 to 3. All right, so here's a question. So since babies can't really talk at this age, do I need to talk to them? Survey says.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So the answer is yes. However, we need to be sensitive to their engagement cues. Reading and talking and singing all help healthy brain development. My older son is the only person on the planet who ever asked me to sing something again. Even my younger son would put his hand to my mouth and be like, "You're done, Mom." So you don't have to be the best. You don't have to have the best stories or the best materials or the best singing voice. You just need to watch their cues. If they're looking at you, if they seem interested, engage them. Ask them a question. I say, and my students know this, if you're working with infants and toddlers and you don't sound like a crazy person, you're not doing your job right. You have to say everything. Oh, we're going to go outside now. We're going to do the dishes. We're going to go to the grocery store. We're going to go to the park. There's times I remember walking the dog and telling the dog, "Look at the sky. There's an airplane." And I was with the dog. You just get to that point where you just start to label and talk. And I see some of you shaking your heads. I say, so you got to sound like a crazy person. And participate in their conversation. So even if they can't speak, they might babble. Right? They might make silly noises, and then you can pause, let them babble, and then respond. "Oh, that's a great story. Say it again." And that's teaching them a whole ton of things, and it's also strengthening those synapses that are firing, like our little poppers on the 4th of July. So there is a link between verbal intelligence and the number of words a baby hears in conversations in the first 2 years of life. So 2 years. We're not even talking about 5 years. We're talking about 2 years. And of course, that came from 0 to 3. Here's another question. Does talking to a baby influence brain development?
Yes.
Yeah, these are easy questions, right? Don't you wish this was like the midterm? It said yes. Most babies learn language from hearing it. They learn it by hearing it. If a child is going to learn to speak, we're going to send them to fancy baby classes, right? They learn by the world around them. Just like the robin learns the robin song. They learn by being immersed in their language. By 6 months of age, a baby is much better at attending to the sound of their native language. So they're going to be much more likely to pay attention when they hear their native language. And if a child is raised to be bilingual, well, then they have 2 native languages. They'll attend to both of those. So, question: what is going on in the brain that may influence language development of toddlers? What do you think? The answer is a lot. Lots going on. So between 13 and 20 months, right after the child is 1 and right before they're 2, a toddler's brain becomes ever more focused. Remember that NASCAR? We're not weaving around anymore. We're getting hanging that track. And I'm not even watching NASCAR, so I'm sorry if I'm wrong. But they go around and they know how to, steer it and get in the right spot. Drafting, I think, is a thing, right? They know they're starting to learn how to do that. So a toddler's brain becomes more focused in the way it responds to words, and this change allows speech to be processed more rapidly. So they're making more connections because they're hearing it. Their brain is developing, and it's a win-win. The more they hear, the more they know. The more they hear, the more they know. 1 or 2 more left. So it's a little pixelated. Question: how come some of my toddlers are using a lot of words, and others are only using a few? Is this related to brain development? Could be, right? It says toddlers can vary greatly, and this is true. No matter how, we're talking a lot about income inequality, where the rest of our panel will be. This is true no matter how much money is in a parent's bank account, how much education a parent will have. Toddlers are like people. Just like, we'll be different. But there is a link, and I'll get to that at the end, between income and language development. So just in general, if you've got a really chatty Cathy baby who is using a lot of words, and then you have like a strong silent toddler who prefers just to point and ask for things that way, that's okay in this realm of things at this age. It says the number of words a toddler uses between 18 and 24 months is related to many factors, such as whether the toddler is a boy or a girl. There's some studies that say girls tend to talk faster or talk earlier and have more vocabulary. It could be personality. I don't try to get too tied up into the gender things. Outgoing or shy, you can easily see that. If your toddler likes to be friendly and has that inclination to go make friends, well, they're going to learn to use their words. Or part of a small or a large family. Sometimes if you're part of a large family, you might think you know a lot of words because you're hearing a lot of conversations, but sometimes it's hard to get a word in a large family, So sometimes in a large family, you might actually have a smaller vocabulary. Most toddlers at this age say around 50 words. And there's something called a language explosion at this age, where they're literally the synapses, remember those 700 a second, those synapses are firing, they're learning words. My kids would take a nap and they would wake up and say 3 new words, after a nap, and it was just incredible at that age. They really do explode. And the brain continues to open up to language until at least 4 or 5 years of age. So right up until kindergarten, we're really all about using language. So what does the research tell us? There's a study from Hart and Risley in 1995. It's a longitudinal study of children from their first birthday until the age of 3. And they talked about language development. And what they found was the children from more affluent homes, the wealthier homes, had much larger vocabularies than the children from lower income homes. They also found that there was not only just the types of words, the amount of words that were different, but the way languages was used in the homes were also different. Families from a lower socioeconomic status tend to be more specific and direct with their language. More directive, like, set the table or clean up your room. Where families from children from more affluent families would say things like, what do you think about dinner? What should we have? How many people are coming tonight? How many plates should we set? And asking more open-ended questions, and at the same time exposing the children to critical thinking, problem solving, and using languages in a different way. The word gap. Now, this didn't work at my home. I hope it works here. So here's the problem. The problem is the word gap. And it was just a visual. It might not. Hey, all right. So the word gap by age 3. On average, economically advantaged children know about 1,100 words by 3. That's pretty cool. And an economically disadvantaged children know 500 words. And that's a lot, but it's statistically significant that they're coming. In other words, it's kind of like the Matthew effect, where the rich get rich and the poor get poorer. And of course I don't mean money in the sense of the wealth is knowing words. These kids who have 1,100 words, they're going to keep learning words like gangbusters, and that gap is just going to get bigger and bigger. And those children who know 500 words, maybe they'll be enrolled in a Head Start program, and those Head Start teachers are going to work their behinds off, and those kids are going to make gains, but they might have difficulty closing that gap. So the gap starts at that very young age. And then last but not least, so the solution, and this is where I'll kind of pass it over to my colleague, Lynn Pabst. Some of the solutions that we have is talk. Be that crazy person, label things, describe your action, ask questions, read anything, really, I mean it, anything. You read the back of your cereal box, read the newspaper, read your textbooks. I used to grade papers, and my son loved the research papers from my children with disabilities class. He would just sit and he would just listen to them. I'd read them out loud, he'd be in the bathtub, and I'd be grading my papers, reading out loud, be anything. Sing, you can make up songs, you can always use the radio and sing along, and of course play, play, and have fun and enjoy your kids. That really shows them a fun way to use it. But I'll pass it over to Lynn for the questions. Questions at the end, I guess, or does anybody have a burning question now? You're a satisfied audience.
Yeah, good job. Thank you.
I know.
I do have a question.
Oh, yes.
How do you think there's a problem with
About
because you said they could be quiet or shy.
Right.
How do you know if they're developing a problem?
So in other words, if there's like a speech delay,
Yeah.
like a language acquisition,
Yeah.
generally that's something that a doctor would diagnose. But as a parent or a caregiver, if you see a big lag in development behind their peers, and especially if you might be noticing a lag in other domains, not just language, maybe it's cognitive, maybe it's physical, maybe it's social,
Like
maybe emotional.
if they got to a certain age and they weren't doing something that they were supposed to be doing at the age?
Yeah, for example, like 6 months, if the baby isn't babbling at all, no sounds, the baby's pretty much quiet, that's a red flag.
Wow.
That it might be, it could be something neurological, it could be hearing, So generally with the speech, you want to rule out everything behavioral first. You want to make sure that they can hear and that they can see and they can do all of those things. And then of course immerse them in language. And usually they can kind of straighten itself out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As Dr. Seeley said, I'm Lynn Past, and I'm the Early Childhood Education Coordinator. And I sometimes teach the 100 course, and I do the practicum courses, so I see you when you're going out. I also see you when you have troubles with your scheduling and planning. So I see a lot of familiar faces out there, and I see some faces I'll probably be seeing in a couple weeks when we start scheduling again. I really enjoy books, I really enjoy music, and I really enjoy using them with children. My task today was to look at our general topic, literacy, success from birth through adulthood, and I was supposed to particularly look at the success in school piece. And we'll try to do that. Our wonderful friend Dr. Seuss really summed it up for us. The more that you read, the more things you know. The more things you learn, the more places you will go. Can't state it any more simply than that. For many, many years, research has been done looking at success in school. And what keeps coming up is that when there is reading proficiency by 3rd grade, there seems to be later school success. So there's that connection. Reading proficiency by 3rd grade is the most significant predictor of child success. So we've got those first 5 years, which Kate Zielinski focused on. We've got those primary grades, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, to make proficient readers and hopefully later successful school students. Those who are reading with proficiency at 3rd grade are less likely to drop out of high school. So we get retention through high school and graduation. Those who are reading with proficiency at 3rd grade are more likely to go on to higher education past high school. In other words, college, 2-year college, 4-year college, some sort of trade school possibly after high school. So they go on for more training. Why is 3rd grade such a pivotal time? Why is that? Why isn't it proficiency at kindergarten or proficiency at 6th grade? Well, something happens in the curriculum at the 3rd grade level. And that is, we see this shift in how literacy is used. So it is in the 3rd grade that children transition from learning to read, and we've got our old friends Dick and Jane back there, okay? And it shifts to reading to learn. And you could say the same thing for the writing piece of literacy. You know, it shifts from learning to write to writing to learn, to share your thoughts, and, write papers and so forth, and put your thoughts down and share them with others. So it's a shift from learning a skill to actually being able to use that skill. Oh, a couple other comments I want to make. Which one do we go back? That? Yes. Good. To connect in with what's going on in the brain, we also know that synaptic formation slows down quite a bit by the age of 10 years. Suddenly, the brain just slows down in its creation of synaptic connections. And what age are these guys in third grade? At the end of third grade? They're 9 going into 10. Okay, so brain-wise, there's that connection too at this age. I want to make that connection with what I said about the brain. So, early literacy exposure. What do we know about that? Well, it seems that when children are read to more, they recognize the letters of the alphabet more quickly and with more proficiency than children who are read to less often. Also, we know that when parents are involved, or when they're not involved, it's going to impact what's happening in the classroom. So when parent involvement is low, the classroom mean average is 46 points below the national average. When parent involvement is high, classroom scores are 28% points above the national average. And 2/3 of American children living in poverty have no books at home. Are we starting to see maybe some inequality? Early literacy exposure, what happens? A lot of the focus of the early literacy exposure is, the research relates it to being able to recognize the alphabet, name the alphabet, phonological awareness, and so forth. So early phonological awareness is an indicator of later reading comprehension success. Being aware of those sounds in our language, being able to connect them to certain letters, is going to help reading comprehension. Phonological awareness and vocabulary development begin with rhymes and songs. It doesn't begin with reading War and Peace. It doesn't begin with Dick and Jane or your reading text. It begins with rhymes and songs. Rhymes and songs are not necessarily written down, correct? Okay. They're verbal. Keep that in mind because we're going to come back to that. Children behind in oral language and literacy development are less likely to be successful beginning readers. And once that gap starts, we saw that gap in the statistics that Ms. Linsky showed us. Once that gap starts, it's real hard and probably never really closes up. And in some cases, it gets worse. Learning to read and write starts in infancy. So there's a big emphasis on supplying children, young children, with exposure examples of print. Why? Well, we know that when children are exposed to print materials, it improves their reading performance. It helps children learn the basics of reading. It causes children to read more. And it produces improved attitudes toward reading and writing. So it's not just being able to do a skill. There's an attitudinal piece to it as well. Do I appreciate the reading and writing? Do I value the reading and writing? Not just can I do it that's important. Okay. We're throwing this word literacy around. What is it exactly? Ms. Linsky, talking about the first 5 years, about, put a pencil in the child's hand and have them write something. She was talking a lot about language. Well, the strict definition of literacy is the ability to read and write. It's a strict definition of it. However, the foundation of literacy is much more. Reading and writing just don't start here. There's a lot that has to happen underneath it to hold it up and give it something to build on. In order to understand that, we have to understand language and what is language, kind of, and the types of language. Give you a minute to look at that. We talk about receptive and expressive language. Receptive language is taking in language and processing it. Okay? You say something, and then I can process it. I'm taking in information through the language. Expressive language is giving out language. So right now, who's engaging in expressive language? Who's engaging in receptive language? Good. Okay. Just checking. Making sure everybody's listening. We also talk about graphic language and verbal language. Graphic language, the symbols, okay, and each language has a different graphic format. If you look at Russian symbols, it's a different graphic format than our alphabet, right? But there's a graphic form of language, and there's a verbal form of language. So, if you look at the nice chart up there, the graphic receptive language is reading. Okay? It's written, but as I read, I'm taking the information in. The graphic expressive language is writing. I'm taking my thoughts, coming out my arm in the form of writing. I'm not putting it down graphically. Receptive verbal language is listening. And verbal expressive language is, you got it. You see all those arrows though in there. They don't exist as isolated items or events or skills. They are all interrelated. What are you talking about? I'm reading. How am I? Well, when you read, you're really listening to what the person wrote. When you are listening, you may also be taking in information or making connections to things that were read. And right now, you're reading and listening at the same time. Correct? Okay. Writing and speaking are going to be connected because, of course, they're both that expressive form. But I can write something down and then I can speak it. I can speak something and then write it down. Some of you are taking notes now, right? And so I'm speaking and you're trying to process it and write it down, which is going to bring us to the listening and the writing connection there. You're listening, trying to write it down. When you read something and you take some information in, as our friend Dr. Seuss said, you've got more to talk about. Correct? You read a book, you got something to talk about. So there's this interconnection. They all start in infancy. Can an infant read a book? No. But the foundation is starting through those motherese, parentese interactions where the child's starting to listen. And the child is responding, even if it is with just these are starting to happen. All right, now we got to talk about school success a bit. Now, after you understand literacy and that it's more than just reading and writing, let's talk about school success. Most people, talk about school success in relation to that reading, writing. All these, I just looked at a first grade report card and it's absolutely ridiculous. But it's, can they read so many words and so forth? Yes, school success is influenced by the ability to read and write, that literacy piece, that strict literacy piece. Yes. And we're especially going to see that, third grade on when you're supposed to be reading things and writing in order to learn. But if we understand that language piece, and we think about some of the other brain things that are going on, and the interaction things that were talked about, there's a lot of other things that influence school success as well. So we can be influenced by other abilities such as being able to listen, speaking, emotional social skills. Anybody want to throw out a couple other things that are not direct reading, writing, but are going to help you succeed?
Thinking.
Thinking? Okay,
Thinking.
you're thinking. Sorry, my ears are going.
Focus.
Being able to focus. Yeah. How long have we asked you to sit here and focus and listen to us? What else? Yes?
Patience.
Patience. All right? Yeah, you got to wait for the next thing. You're done with your math paper or you know the concept, but you've got to wait for some others to catch up. Anything else you want to get on that list?
Structure. Do your schoolwork.
Being organized in structure.
Routine. Routine.
Routine. Okay, get yourself into routine and being able to deal with routines. Some people just can't have, or have difficulty dealing with routines and structures. Good. Just want to make sure I was making notes to connect to hers as she was doing it. I'm just double checking that I'm making the connections I wanted to make. Okay, you started a great list. These are some other things that are indicators of school success. Quality parent-child interactions. When there is that good attachment and that good interaction, and the child can relate to the parent, that's going to transfer to relating to other adults, and of course there are a lot of adults in the school situation you have to relate to. Parent involvement. The parent's going to be there to support, follow through, then reinforce maybe what's happening in school. Limited television viewing, I can throw that in there. Positive temperament. Okay. Yeah, do you have that good positive attitude towards things? Deal with change and so forth. Parent literacy practices. Positive attachment patterns. Pro-social behaviors. Perceptions of child's ability. So a lot of other things that are going to influence or be indicators of school success. Now let's get us back to the younger child and the literacy piece. Emily Buckman said, children are made readers on the laps of their parents. And I've added, leading to school success. But again, I don't want us to get trapped by thinking of only reading and writing. You see, you've got nice pictures of parents with children in their laps, reading to them. They're reading some different books where younger ones eating while, watch, see the eyes. Bottles in the mouth, but where are the eyes looking at that book? So that younger child is benefiting from what the father thinks he's doing for the older child. Okay, but let's not get trapped by the reading, because remember Ms. Zelinsky said there were those appropriate interactions? Yeah. If you just read to the book, whatever, the small child may not respond. You need to use appropriate interaction. So what are some of the benefits other than reading and writing when you appropriately read to the young child? You're providing that essential touch. And when we look at the research about touch, we know that that helps children develop physically, emotionally, socially, when it's appropriate physical touch. Their attention span is being developed. Yeah, they're sitting there with dad and mom, whoever, grandma. Listening skills, vocabulary, human exchanges. Yeah, I like that picture. I didn't like that picture. You laugh together when it's something funny. Or you point, the child points to something and you respond to it. They learn about humans, getting along with humans. Adult-child relationship building. And if the child learns to respect reading and doing these things with the adult that is their attachment figure, then it will transfer to some other adults, the teacher in the classroom, if they've had a positive experience. And if you respect your teacher in the classroom, you will learn more, be more successful. Building of background knowledge. Okay, I learned some stuff that I can then talk about later on. Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw a picture of that tree or that animal in the book. I can talk about it later on. It helps them learn to stay on task. They talk about the book, so speaking is practiced. They learn to communicate with adults. Self-regulation and impulse control. You have to wait for the next page. The next part of the story, anticipation. Focused listening skills. Motor skills. Yeah, you should be allowing the child to hold the book, turn the pages, do those things. Social skills and turn-taking. And children learn to value reading because mom or dad, my significant big person, values it. So it's something that's going to become important to me. But there is an inequity. And you'll notice here, I didn't just say parents because it's adults in general. It could be a babysitter, could be grandparents. In some cases, could be a caregiver. Lower income homes have fewer to no books. They can't sit down because they just don't have the books. Some adults have difficulty reading themselves and feel inadequate reading to their children, so they don't read. I can't do that. I think we're going to have another workshop on how you can do that, even if you feel inadequate. There are lots of other ways, because it's more than just that written word. Some adults do not value reading, so they do not read to their children. Head Start might send home a book, but if that parent throws it on a shelf and never opens it or puts it up on top of the refrigerator and never gives it to the child, some adults are too busy trying to make ends meet, and so they don't have time. And yes, that is a thing in our single parents and busy lives. It's hard to find time to sit down and have that wonderful time together. And I think I skipped, they do not value books or do not model literacy. If the parent isn't reading the newspaper, writing letters, or doing things, the child's going to say, Mom, Dad's getting through life without doing this. Why should I do it? So, the question before us is, what can we do to alleviate these inequities so all children can succeed? And I'm not going to give you an answer to that today. You're going to have to think about that and attend some of the other events that we have. And maybe by the end of the semester, we'll come up with some suggestions. Okay. We are taking one step in this direction And we are collecting books, and there are drop-off spots. There will be. They're not out there yet.
So watch for announcements for books for kids to drop off. To start our own book bank here on campus for the parents of kids.
So if you have kids, where you can use this book bank. Maybe you have a niece or nephew. Don't think it has to be your own child. Your niece or nephew, a neighbor child that you babysit for, you can come borrow a book, sit down and read it to them next time you babysit. And we'll come up with some other ideas.
I was just going to ask, are they going to use books for certain ages so we have an idea
Yes.
of what books
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
and they'll be. We'll get information out. Watch the
broadcast emails, and
Yeah.
I'll have emails of those of you who have attended, and we'll send special emails out to you.
And then they will be organized in the bank as well, so that you can come in and say, I need a book for a kindergarten age child, and you can go to that section, right? That would make sense to do that. Okay. And we'll leave you with, once you learn to read, you will be forever free. Read with those.
Good afternoon, everyone. Last but not least, my name is Kim Gavlik. I work with the ALTA program here on campus. We're a grant-funded program that works with adults who are in need of basic literacy skills. That could be looking to get their GED, that could be English language learners, they could be part of our family literacy program as well, where we work with the parents of children who have their kids enrolled in Head Start. So we have a lot of different things that go on within our program. As I was preparing for today, I thought, well, I'll come up with all kinds of awesome statistics and I'll share that with you guys. But you know what? This is all about literacy. And so I decided I'm going to sit here or stand here and talk to you guys today about why literacy matters even through adulthood. So I'm going to tell you a couple stories. Once upon a time, there was a man named Raymond. Raymond was older than he cared to admit and was experiencing some mobility problems. Raymond has worked in the same job for 35 years. He's on his feet all day in a warehouse, and it is really starting to get him down. He'd like to get out of that warehouse and get a new career, but he's ashamed to admit that he can't read or write. Raymond is a functioning illiterate. He has the ability to read and write, but not very well, just at a very basic level. He cannot carry out more advanced tasks, such as operating a computer, filling out a job application, or maybe completing his tax returns. Raymond's not alone. An estimated 860 million people worldwide are functioning illiterate. It's a lot of people. And just in Luzerne County alone, 12% of the adults are lacking basic literacy skills. So I got a little statistics and a story at the same time. Then there's Mackenzie. Mackenzie's husband left her and her 2 children last year. She doesn't have a job or a high school diploma, since she dropped out at the age of 16 to have her first child. She was a really good student and usually got A's in school. But when she found out she was pregnant, she chose to get a job to support her family. She decided to quit her job when she became pregnant with her second child. Her husband was working, but did not make a livable wage, which means they could not really support their family. Because of this stress, he chose to leave his family. Now Mackenzie has 2 young children and no way to support them. She does not qualify, or she does qualify actually, for a little bit of support from the government, but her pride stops her from taking that money. She keeps hoping her husband will pay the child support he promised. Mackenzie is one of 710,000 adults in Pennsylvania that do not have a high school diploma. And finally, I want to tell you about Yolanda. Yolanda came to this country just 6 months ago. She's originally from South America. She has family in the area and heard that she could find work in the United States. She comes here with the hope that she will be able to earn enough money to send back to her children in Venezuela. Unfortunately, she can't find employment as a nurse, for which she had received training in her country, because she lacks the English skills necessary to work in the medicine field, the field of medicine in a U.S. hospital. Instead, she must take a job in a factory and work 50 to 60 hours per week. She feels stuck now because she doesn't really even have enough money to return to her country because she keeps sending it back to her family. Yolanda is one of 122,000 adults in Pennsylvania who cannot speak English. These are just 3 examples of the stories that we hear in our program. They're not real people. I've changed the names, but the stories are real. And we've had a lot of our students come to us with many, many barriers, similar to what I described. But despite all of those challenges, we have many of the adults in our program have succeeded and have gone on to increase their income potential by increasing their educational levels. Since the ALTA program's inception, we've served over 12,000 adults in need of basic skills instruction. Currently, we serve about 650 adults and families in Luzerne and Schuylkill County. The students who come to us are looking to pass the GED test, obtain employment, retain employment, maybe they have a job but it's just not good enough, or move on to post-secondary education or training. We know the higher your educational levels are, the more income potential you have. So for an instance, an adult with at least a high school diploma can earn about $8,000 more per year than someone without a high school diploma. If you obtain further training, your earning potential increases by almost 20%. We share all of this information with all of our students when they come into our program, so they understand why they're there and what we can do for them. Our ultimate goal is to see the students reach their full potential, so we work closely with them also on developing a career pathway. Where do they want to go? What do they want to do? We look at their short-term goals, we monitor those goals, and we do some career research with them, match up their skills, maybe their interests, with a career of their choice. Adult education isn't just about teaching people to read anymore, although that is a big part of it, or at least improving that area in their education. But we do provide full services for adults who are looking to improve from basic skills level up through an advanced level. When an adult learner contacts our program, they go through an intensive orientation process. And during that orientation, we really want them to understand what they're getting into, why they're there, what we can do for them, what we can't do for them. Nothing can happen without their input and their desire to move forward. In Pennsylvania, students in need of a high school equivalency diploma will take the General Educational Development Test, or the GED. Upon receiving that passing score, they will get a Commonwealth Secondary School Diploma from the Department of Education in Harrisburg. Over the last 2 years, we've had over 200 students earn that credential. So the bottom line for adults is if we can get our students to meet their educational goals, they will gain employment that will sustain themselves and their families, and will be putting more money back into our economy. And that's why I feel literacy matters even through adulthood.
I know we're a little short on time, but does anyone have questions? I want to again thank you for attending. Watch. There will be information about other literacy events, as well as we talked about the book collection and a book bank on campus that any of you can get involved with us in donating or even working with us to develop that book bank. There's also information about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which if you sign up to the United Way, a child, give it to neighbors that have children or family members, that then those children, for every month of their life, from birth through 5 years old, will receive a free book in the mail. We talked about the fact that kids don't have books. This is a great way to get books into the hands of kids. So again, thank you all for bearing the elements and coming here. We greatly appreciate it. Make sure you pull up the handouts. If you do the assessment, just give it to your instructors to get back to me, or drop it off and